Hey there. Welcome to another episode of the She Busy podcast. I have a guest today for the very first time, and I'm super excited to bring her on. I have Sherry Sutton, who is joining us. She is a business growth guide and marketing mentor who has spent decades perfecting her craft. She's a true expert in creating personalized marketing plans that help service-driven entrepreneurs build businesses that not only make money, but also make a significant difference. Sherry's passion for helping women grow their businesses without breaking the bank and her commitment to showing up authentically, even when it's scary, makes her the perfect fit for this show. And also because Sherry is my own personal marketing mentor. So I'm going to bring Sherry on to the show.
Hi.
Hi, Sherry. It's so great to have you on today. This is my very first guest, like I mentioned. Sherry is my own personal marketing mentor, and I'm excited to start with you. So let's dive right in.
Thanks
I
for
know you're not
having
wearing,
me.
of course. And I know you're not wearing a hat today, but you are well known for your hat game. So just to get us started, I wanted to ask you, because female entrepreneurs, we are known for wearing so many hats and basically all of the hats. So tell me a little bit about what you do and how you help take some of these hats off for other entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Again, thank you for having me. I'm so proud of you. It's been so fun watching your evolution, and I'm happy to be a little tiny part of it. So I'm so honored to be here. So I am a marketing mentor, business growth guide. So I work with primarily solopreneurs who are the face of their brand, helping them figure out how to do marketing in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming. And because there's so many different options when it comes to marketing, a lot of us initially think like, oh, I have to do social media, or I have to, do Google ads, or I have to do this, or I have to do that. And there really isn't any. Sometimes there's some have tos, but there are so many options of the things you can do to grow your business that it really helps having a seasoned guide like me to say, okay, what do you like to do? Where does your client, potential client, like to find information? And how do we combine those into a marketing strategy that isn't crazy difficult? Because I think one of the things that happens particularly as solopreneurs, especially in the first few years, we put on hats that we don't need to put on. We get overwhelmed and we think we have to do everything. And you're such a genius at helping women through this too on the operational side. But on the marketing side, I see it all the time where people are like, I have to do all these things. And I have to do 5 posts a day on social media and, 5 emails a day. And I need to go to every networking thing. And they overwhelm themselves, and then that's never consistent, and it's never something that they can actually do and actually achieve. So one of the things that I do is help to demystify the shoulds in your marketing and help you to say, okay, here's the 3 things I'm going to do. Here's how I make it really simple. Here's how I take off all these hats that I think I'm supposed to be doing and find the 1 or 2 that I can really focus on that are going to drive my business. Maybe not forever, but even if it's just for the next 3 months. And how do I take that hat and make the most of it, right? Taking this analogy way too far. But it's the idea of, once you choose to do something, how do I choose things that are going to let me get the most out of them, right? Either cost the least, have the least amount of time and effort. Like one of the things we did for you, and this podcast is an example, like, hey, you already had the podcast. You're great at it. So how do we use that as a vehicle to create content that you can use in all the other places? So you do one interview like this with me, but then you put it on YouTube. So now you've got your YouTube channel growing. You've got your podcast on all the podcasting places. So that's going. You can chop it up into smaller pieces. Now you've got your reels going, right? You could push it live on, one of the platforms, and now you've got a live going. So you've got one thing that you're doing, but it gives you all this different types of content, right? You could do an email about it. You could do a blog about it. Now you've got SEO, you've got email marketing, and it's all around this one thing that you do. And so that's what I really work with people on, is how can you simplify what you're doing to get the most out of your time? Because we don't have a lot of time, right? We got all those other hats, like mom and, chef and chauffeur. My son's 13, and I feel like all of that I am is a chauffeur and a banker.
Right. And that's a lot of hats to be wearing just within your life and of course your business as well. And we did. I mean, I think one of the best things that we could work on, at least especially with what I'm doing, is we were able to create one thing and then, like you said, repurpose it. And if that doesn't save time, and if that's not my favorite thing, I don't know what is. For me, that was really important to be able to do something, because operationally, like you said, I'm pretty fairly sound, but marketing wise, a lot of times people don't really know where to be spending their time. And I was one of them. So for me, the podcast was a great way to start. But one of the things that you mentioned too is that you do a lot of personalized plans for people. So tell me a little bit about what makes you decide how to personalize for each individual.
Yeah, I like to do things that are personalized because I don't believe there's a one size fits all that works for everyone. Again, people sort of assume, oh, I have to do social media. And I just talked to somebody about this yesterday. I said, you know what? I can think of 5 ways you can grow your business right now without doing social media. Because there's a combination of what you are good at and what you want to do and what kind of content lights you on fire. And a combination of that with where does your client go to look for information? Because one of the things we forget, that second part, we forget to wonder and ask ourselves in our strategy where people go for information. And I'll give you this example. So if you go, and you may have already heard me say this, so hopefully you know the answer to my next question. So you go to the dentist. I know your sister is a dentist.
Yes, she is a dentist.
So you go to your sister and your sister says, you need a root canal and I don't do root canals. Okay. So now you've been given a task, right? You are a consumer. You've been given a task to find I forget what they're called, periodontist.
Yes.
Okay. What do? Where do you go to look for that information? What's the first thing out of your mouth?
I either ask her who she recommends, and hopefully she'll give me a recommendation, and I'll usually just go with that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So if I were a periodontist, a normal periodontist starting their business might go, I need social media, I need Google ads, I need to do, all this other stuff, right? I'm going to do print ads and whatever, magazine. I'm going to do all this other stuff. And they're going to have to hire an agency and they're going to spend $10,000 a month and they're going to get no business. And I would say to them, okay, look, let's look at the flow of how people look for you.
Right. Okay.
So if someone's looking for a periodontist, they're generally not good. You don't just call a periodontist. You don't just go to them. Right. You go because somebody else told you had to. So the best way for you to get business is dentists. So if I were doing a marketing plan for a periodontist, I would say, look, don't do any social media. Have a website. It can be very basic. Make sure you show up on Google, for a Google search.
Right.
But otherwise, all I want you to do is suck up to dentists. That's all I want you to do. I want you to find every dental, conference in Dallas, every, whatever. I want you to go door to door and go meet them and bring them, coffee once a month and get to know them, go see what charities they like, go to the galas for the places where they have a board seat or something like that. If that periodontist, when they first start, if all they do is that outreach just to dentists, they will grow their business. No social media, no ads, no nothing. And I think we sometimes forget that there are so many other options to grow our business. And that's why I'm so passionate about doing these individualized plans, because there isn't a one size fits all. There isn't. It depends on you, one, and two, where your clients go for information. And depending on that latter part, especially, sometimes the plan the plan has to change. The things that you're going to do are going to change based on that combination of things. Also, there's a lot of people who, and I see this all the time. Okay, social media, let's say, makes sense for their business, but they just can't be on video. They just can't, right? They just, and I've got a lot of clients like that. And I have other ones who are like, sure, I'll go do video. I'm good. But what we can do is, and I have one client in particular that I'm working with right now, and we sat down, we tried to do reels, and it just wasn't working. And so we're like, okay, what else can we do? How else can we do social media in a way that works for you? Or what are the other things that we could do without social media, or with just a little social media that can get things moving? I think only by having a mentor who's had experience in a gazillion different industries like me, you need that in order to find that most personalized plan that really works for you and for your clients. And a lot of people don't have that experience. And that's why I sort of found this little niche of developing customized plans that are what we call omni-channel, which has, in other words, like lots of different things that you can do. Because I've got that experience. I've worked at a chemical company where there's maybe 100 clients in the entire world for your product. You're not going to do ads in the Wall Street Journal. You're not going to do a Super Bowl commercial, right? I mean, that sounds silly, but
sounds cool, but
it sounds cool. I've done it. I've made the big commercials that did nothing, right? Back in the .com days. And I have an Addy Award for best, local TV and radio, or TV and radio thing. But we never launched it. It was the .com days. But it doesn't make, like, in that type of an environment, it didn't make any sense. The best thing to do was go to the trade shows, host parties for these folks, right? Like, get on a plane, be in front of them. That's how we grew that business. And so having all those experiences, I'm able to know what works and what doesn't. So that's why I'm so passionate about individualized plans, because there's so many coaches out there and there's so many courses out there on the individual things, but there's nobody who really puts together the overall strategy in an effective way.
Right. And I love that. And you work with a lot of you're not primarily with female entrepreneurs, but you do work with a lot of them. So even though you are doing personalized plans, sometimes you're going to see patterns that are going to come up with clientele. What kind of patterns do you see with female entrepreneurs who are needing help with their marketing? Maybe they're resistant to getting the help for whatever reason. What kind of trends do you see that you feel like we need to work on changing in the future for all female entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think it's actually the same one that you see, which is this idea of I can do it all. Right. I can do it all by myself. I know what I'm doing. Me and my phone and Google, we will figure this out.
Right.
And anybody who's driven enough to start their own business and smart enough to start their own business.
Right.
Probably, yes, that's true. It's probably true. But how much time are you going to spend doing that? And does that make sense? Does that time make sense, right? To me, the investment that you're going to spend in somebody like me at the front end, or you once you're in a couple years, to really optimize the processes from the start, you're going to save so much more money. The people who I see who are like, I can do it, or I'm going to take this course and I'm going to go do that, or I'm going to take this course, I'm going to go do that, or I'm going to hire an agency and give them, literally tens of thousands of dollars and never get a single lead. I have had many, many clients where that's the case. Right. And it's generally because they're like, I can figure this out. I don't need I don't need an expert. I can figure it out. And I think that's true in so many areas of our lives, that we just complicate everything for ourselves.
Right.
Don't we?
Yes, all the time.
All the time. And there's like no reason to. Like, why don't we just ask someone else like how to do this stuff? And I've always had that approach in my life. And I think we've shared this story. I've shared this story with you, but I'll share it with your listeners. When my son was in daycare and was in daycare from the beginning, because I feel like there's people who know how to do things way better than me. Right. So it came time to potty train, and the teacher at daycare says to me, so how would you like us to potty train Walden? I'm like, I don't know. You're the expert. You potty train him. Right. You tell me what to do. I don't want to read the books. I don't want to watch the YouTube. I don't want to do any of those things. I want you to tell me what to do, because you're going to be more effective. The number of hours that I spend trying to teach myself how to potty train a kid when I'm only ever going to have one child
Right.
It's a complete waste of my time. And I'm already paying you and you're with him 8 to 10 hours a day.
Right.
This is a no brainer. But it's amazing to me how many of my peers who were also, we all have babies, I had a group of people, we all had babies at the same time, who were up all night reading the book on potty training and,
Right.
making sure their nanny knew that this is the way to do it. And I'm like, why? They know what they're doing. And I think we make it so complicated for ourselves.
Yes.
We don't need
Yes.
to.
Yes. And I've been that person too that just overcomplicates things, even as a parent and in business. And I had to learn my way out of that because I was like, why am I so possessive of needing to know how to do this when, like, even if I put in hours and hours of time, I'm going to be mediocre at best at this task. So why not get the help that I need to help me get there faster? And that's where I feel like it's kind of a mindset thing where women especially have trouble letting go. I think of what they could be working on and how they could be doing it better by using help and guidance. And I think that makes a huge difference when you have this network now. I feel like nowadays, especially, you can find a coach or consultant for anything, and it makes things go so much faster. Even with my childcare business, I had coaching going on in the background, and that's what helped me get to where I got faster, was because I had someone who had the experience, who knew so many other people who had gone through it and found those trends that they were seeing and helped me work through that. So I wouldn't have to just figure it out on my own, because there's no point reinventing the wheel for every single thing. you know? So that's been,
and you're going to make more money faster. Right. I mean, you're going to get the return on the investment very quickly. I have found that with my own coaching, both coaching my clients and otherwise, right? The amount of time you're going to spend throwing darts at a wall with no dartboard, which is what happens when you don't have a strategy, the longer it's going to take you to start making money.
Right.
And so if you want to start making money faster, you need a strategy, right? If you want to get out of your business faster, you need somebody who's going to help you with your ops. Because here's the reason why. One, I think we've been sold a lie that we can do it all, right? I mean, and I watched my mom was in that generation of women who sort of left the house and started working in the 80s and, dressed like men, and we can have it all. And, I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan and never let you forget you're a man, right? The old commercial. But what we lost in that, and I think this is what's happening now, is women took on everything.
That's right.
And we didn't give any of it up. And it's one of the things that I love most about you is you have said, I'm going to do it all, but the only way that I can do it is with lots of help and with lots of outsourcing. And you know what? That's not only appropriate, but it's smart. Right. And if I want to get there faster, I'm going to get there faster. I'm going to get the experts to tell me what to do, and then I'm going to go. And that is going to be the best example that I can create for my daughter when she's ready to be successful.
Right. Because I feel like we take on that burden. I actually had a different experience. My mom never worked, or at least as long as I was old enough to remember, she never worked outside the home. My dad was the primary breadwinner, and he was an entrepreneur, and my mom did everything at home. And we always wanted to be like my dad. I have 3 sisters, we're all 4 entrepreneurs. We wanted to be like my dad. But what we didn't realize is we would have to take a lot of my mom with us too. So it was like combining 2 entire life-consuming roles and trying to figure out how we're going to keep this going. So I think it was one of the smartest things I ever did to start to realize that I needed to pass some stuff along, and it didn't make me weaker or less knowledgeable. I needed people to be around me, to advise me, to guide me, because that doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. That means you're actually great at what you do and smart at what you do when you're able to get help from people. So I think that's really important. And for you too, I'm sure you see this all the time, but we deal with a lot of imposter syndrome, which I think is really driven by that fear mindset. But what kind of strategies do you use to guide either yourself or your clients to help get through that fear mindset? Because a lot of times we don't want to do things because we don't know what's on the other side. But how do you get people through or over that bridge?
Yeah, a little bit depends on what it is. But often it's what belief is holding you back from doing this right now. Right? And it always comes down to fear of being rejected. 99% of the things that come up, especially in marketing, because it's
Right.
about putting yourself out there, and especially as the face of your brand, it
Right.
all comes down to fear of being rejected. Because we're tribal animals, right? I mean, we don't look like animals anymore, but we're still tribal animals. And, it's deeply ingrained in our DNA that we need to fit in, because if you don't fit in, you're going to be on the edge of the herd, and, whatever the predator of the day is going to get you. And so we have this deep need in our DNA to be accepted.
Right.
So one of the biggest struggle that I see for people is just that fear of not fitting in. And so I work with my clients a lot on that. And we get to a place of like, well, who told you that you're not going to fit in? Who told you that you can't stand up? Who told you that it's inappropriate for you to take up space?
Right.
And there's usually a parent, or, there's usually some trauma attached to it, or they were just born like that. I feel like I was just born feeling that way.
Right. Right.
And this is true of anything in our lives. We say, okay, where did I learn this? And then the second half of that is, am I choosing to continue to believe this? You have a choice if you are going to continue to believe that. Your mom could have told you every single day that you're blonde and you're not. So you can choose to continue to believe it as an adult. Like my
mom said
for a long time, I can look in the mirror and go, I am not blonde. I can choose to believe it, or I can say, you know what? My mom did the best she could.
Right.
And I'm going to choose to believe something else. And I'm going to choose to act differently, even if I'm scared. I'm going to act as if, even if I'm scared. And why? Why do people act when they're scared? The reason people act when they're scared is because they have a mission and a vision and a purpose that's higher than them.
Right.
That's more important than their fear. And that's the other thing I try to get people to tap into is, what is that bigger vision of the change you want to make in the world that only you can make, that only by standing up and taking up space can you manifest? And let that be bigger than your fear. Let the service that you want to provide to the world be bigger than that fear. So you can say, okay, I'm super uncomfortable right now. I know that it's because my mom told me I was blonde and I'm actually a redhead, which I'm not. My hair is actually your color. All right. But that's a whole
whatever color that is. Yeah.
Whatever color that is. But, I was told this. I'm choosing not to believe it. And I believe that I have service that I can give to the world. And that is going to be my North Star. So I'm going to say to myself, I'm willing to do this even though I'm scared, because I believe that I'm doing it for a higher purpose to help other people in a more meaningful way.
Right.
And I think that's why a lot of people fail when they do things like MLMs or something like that, because you don't have a bigger purpose, right? If you're going into it like, oh, I just want to make some money, which is like, there's nothing wrong with money. We like money. We want money. All of this comes with money. There is no, you don't have, you can have a game. Yeah, you can have a purpose and still have a profit.
Right.
But you have to have a vision that's larger than yourself, right? And generally it comes from some sort of pain you've been through. I mean, you're a good example of that, where you've said like, oh my gosh, I went through all of this struggle of trying to do all of it by myself with this business during COVID. Like,
yes.
And I realized that this isn't the way to do it, right? You got to outsource, you got to have systems, you got to do these other things. And then when you were really, you'd achieved it. Like you're done, like you got the money's coming in, you got the time, you're going to Pilates every day. And you said, I have a drive to serve others and to give this back to other women.
Right.
And to help them so they don't have to feel like the way that I felt. Right. And along the way, I'm going to make some money, which is good for everybody.
I mean, that's what kind of makes it go around. And I feel like a lot of times, the big fear too is people you don't know if that parachute's going to work until you actually jump out of the plane. And that's a huge risk to take, but we are entrepreneurs. That's just part of our DNA sometimes, is how we operate. But I feel like sometimes when we've taken that first plunge and jumped and we're like, sweet, the parachute worked, it's like PTSD. So the rest of the way through marketing, through operations, you're like, oh no, wait, I can't take another plunge. It's like, you can put yourself out there over and over again. And that's how you're going to grow and build and get to where you want to get to. Because a lot of times people think once they make that initial jump into entrepreneurship, that's the hardest part of the game, but it's not. There's so much more that comes after that. And you have to continuously be optimizing. Like when they first start out, they may not even realize that they need as much marketing help, because I feel like we go through the phases of, okay, I'm going to start a business. I know what people want. I'm going to put it out there and they're going to just come rushing to me. And generally that's not how it goes, then you need that help and that guidance from someone like a marketing mentor who's been there and can walk people through it. And then people get to that point where they need someone like me, because they've started to grow their business and they feel like, oh, if I just reach a certain revenue number, I'm going to be able to pull myself out. If I could just make a certain amount of money. But you have to be able and willing to jump first. And I think you have to, when you are jumping out of that plane, you have to realize that you're going to do it multiple times. Like this is not your first and only time that you're going to do this. You're going to have to keep doing it over and over again and proving to yourself that you can get to the next level. And that's with marketing, that's with operations. Getting to the next level, if you want to get to the next level, is going to be so different than getting to the previous level. And I think that's where the constant fear is there as a business owner and as an entrepreneur. And I feel like you either need to give into that and realize, hey, this is just how it's going to be, or you're going to have to it's going to hold you back for every single time you're ready to make a shift and you're ready to grow. Because even for me, I got to a cushy little place with my business, started going to Pilates every day, like you said, realized I wanted to do more and I wanted to grow more and help more, but didn't realize that it would take so much time and effort. And using you, obviously, and getting me to that point faster was just so helpful. So I feel like we need to dig in, realize that we're jumping out of the airplane, maybe jump with someone on our backs too. Not that I would ever, I don't know why I'm using this analogy. I would never skydive. Like legit.
Me neither.
All of my stuff, all of my risk is in the business. Skydiving is not on my list, but I felt like it was a good analogy, so I thought I would use it.
Well, and two things. I love you. You came up with two analogies, and I'll take them a little bit further because I loved everything you said, which is every time, you're going to jump out of the airplane all the time, every day, right? Every day as an entrepreneur is jumping out again. You want to make sure you have a good parachute, right? Yep. Which is a good strategy. And if you don't know how to do a strategy, find people to help you, right? Whether it's at the beginning with marketing, in the middle with the marketing, ops, finance, right? Whatever it is. But every time you jump out, it gets easier emotionally, right? Yes. The ground is still just as far, but it gets easier emotionally. And I think one of the other things, and you brought up the analogy, or maybe you didn't, I just thought of it, but I use the analogy of a marathon.
Right.
One of the things that entrepreneurs often don't realize when they start is they've been sold some idea by whoever that, all you have to do is post once on social media and you're going to make $100,000. Like it's just going to be that easy, right? Simple. It's going to come quick. And we see this person who's like, in 3 months, I made $3 million and blah, blah, blah. And like, so you spend $1,000 and you take their course and 3 months later you have nothing except $1,000 still sitting on your credit card.
Right.
And what they don't tell you is that there was that's the last mile of the marathon. Mm-hmm. And that you have to see entrepreneurship as a long game. Right. Everything you do is a long game. And I actually won't even work with people who are like, well, I need to ramp up really quick. And so within 3 months, I need to have passive revenue so that I can go do another project. And I'm like, it just doesn't, like, do you have an audience? And they're like, no, I've never been an entrepreneur before. You're like, I'm sorry, whoever sold you that dream, it's not going to happen. And there are no techniques I can give you that are going to make that happen. Now so they want to make $100,000, let's say within 3 months. You can spend $250,000 on advertising to get $100,000. So I can get you $100,000, but you're going to spend $250,000 on marketing. That's the other thing that some of these, kind of business coaches don't tell you is they're like, I made $100,000 in 3 months or whatever, or in a month.
Right.
But how much money did you spend to get there?
Exactly. Right.
And
there's a lot of noise out there, I think. And that's where people get caught up too. So how do you recommend, because obviously you're someone who believes in authenticity. You did a whole TEDx talk about it. And you believe in that. And of course, we all do to get to the next level. But I feel like we get caught up sometimes in being fed these narratives that you can do it so much faster if you just follow XYZ, then all of a sudden everyone's going to be a millionaire. I mean, everyone would be a millionaire then. So how do you recommend that people sift through all that noise to find someone like yourself and to make that decision? Like, what are the red flags for other people that they might be looking to work with?
I think it's like anything else. It's like weight loss or skincare or whatever. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right. Right. And that happens all the time.
It happens all the time. It happens and we've all done it, right? Use this cream for 30 days and you're going to look like you're 20 again. Or
that's right.
We've all done it, and don't feel bad if you kind of get sucked into it. I think it's just, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
I like to look at the cost of those things. Like, if you want to take a course that says how to make $100,000 in 3 months and it's $15, like, cool. Maybe you'll get a couple things out of it. If you've got some time and you can do that, that's cool. Right. I think where it gets, and this is my industry, especially in the business coaches, there are a lot of business coaches who we've created this really gross market where it's like, well, if you want to make $100,000 in 3 months, you need to pay me $100,000 in 3 months, because the only way you can make $100,000 is if you spend $100,000 on coaching. Right. And like, they literally say that. That's gross and not correct. And you probably won't make, you won't make that money. And so I think some of it too is seeing, is this a realistic, somewhat appropriate price point? And you and I have talked about that with pricing. It's like, I don't believe I should be making $10,000 an hour. I mean, there's coaches out there who are like, oh, $10,000 an hour. I'm like, you're not going to tell me $10,000 worth of information.
Right. Exactly.
You're just not. And the game of, if I don't spend that, I won't make any money is gross.
Right.
And it's, so I think it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard to get through the noise. It's really hard to know who to talk to. I think it's, good to look at people who are not on a fast track, but go to people who are on other marathoners, right? And you'll know who they are. The people who are trying to get it done real quick, they're going to be gone in 3 months. They're no longer going to be at the networking things, right? You can tell the people who have had long, successful businesses and ask them, like, hey, I want to be on the marathon. Like, I want to make a growing, long-term, sustainable business. What are your recommendations? Who are the real people to work with who can really help me set the strategy in the right path from the beginning?
And I think that's what you said it rings true, because both of us have similar clientele in that aspect. Is you want people, or our clients really just want our clients really just want to be able to have a long-term sustainable business, whether they have an exit strategy at the end. It's not a quick buck. We're trying to build something and grow something that a lot of times we're really passionate about and we really absolutely love. And I feel like those are the kinds of people that veer towards you and I, especially because that's what we do, right? We're building something that we really care about and that we really love. So for me, I think it's really important too to find people who care about what they're doing, because they're going to be more likely to care about what you're doing and helping you along the way. And like you said, if it's mission and vision driven, look for that, right? Look for people who have a mission and vision in their business, because then they'll help you get to your mission and vision faster and guide you along the way. So I think that's super important. But
I think it's practicality too. Like, that's the word I want to use, is like, find somebody who's inspiring yet practical. And I think about like weight loss, right? You can do some of these, weight loss kind of drugs, but you still need to find something that's going to be sustainable long-term. Right. So you can do some quick wins, but also with a larger strategy of how am I going to maintain this long term,
Right.
right? I'm
Right.
going to do a quick diet to get me to my ideal weight, but then I'm going to have another strategy for how to complete it. And so you can have a little bit of both, right? And I have people who
Right.
are like, I need to make 10 grand, or whatever it is. I need to make 10 grand this month. What's the offer, right? What
Right.
can we do? I'm not saying that nothing can come quickly, but you have to have both. And it's a little bit like working out or exercise or anything. You can't just run once and be ready to run the marathon. You have to say, okay, how do I get in shape at the fastest way? And then how do I sustain it? And I think that's one of the things that you and I are both really dedicated to, as opposed to the 30-day quick fix.
Right. Right. And yeah, like you said, 30-day quick fixes are fun, but what's the plan after the fact to keep you going and keep you on that path? Because even with me, like I can give people tips and tricks on how to get more time, but then what are you going to do with that time? Because if you're not improving your habits on how you're spending your time, like you're going to go back to working in another thing for your business rather than getting to working on your business. So making time just didn't do anything. It just got you distracted in a different direction. So I think that that's super important. But one of the things I wanted to ask you too, obviously we're nearing the end of the conversation, which I have thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you for being here. But I wanted to ask you, because freedom looks different for everybody, right? I feel like as an entrepreneur, the biggest success that you can gain is freedom, whether that's freedom of time, freedom of money, freedom to be able to travel or nap in the middle of the day, whatever that might be. What does freedom look like for you? What's your ultimate goal for freedom for yourself in your business?
It's being able to be of service every single minute of every single day to other really cool people. And I set this intention a number of years ago. I said, all I want is to work on cool projects with cool people.
Nice.
Like, that's freedom to me. I don't want to work on things that I find boring. Now I have to do some boring things. I discovered I had like a major financial reporting issue last week, and there was reports and there was tax forms and there was bleh. No one wants to do that stuff.
Right.
So you have to do some stuff you don't want to do. But if I get to spend the vast majority of my day having conversations like this with like really smart women who are trying to create businesses and offer them a little bit of the experience that I've had in my life, either from a marketing perspective or from a recovering addict perspective or from a mom perspective or from a yogi perspective, that's freedom.
Right.
There's nothing better. There's nothing better than living in alignment with every single gift that I've been given and being able to serve that back. And if I get to make a little money along the way, cool. Now, that doesn't mean I don't work a million hours a day. I think there is some freedom as well of being an entrepreneur where my son comes home at 3:00. One thing they don't tell you is there's no daycare when you get to middle school, which becomes a whole other thing. So, he comes home at 3:30 and I get a little bit of float time. And I could never do that in the corporate world. I could never leave at 3:00 and go pick him up. And so there is some time freedom to it, but I also don't, I can't say I work 3 hours a week. I mean, I don't. Mostly because I don't want to. Right. I have created a business that I don't want to. I want to have these conversations every day because that feeds my soul. Being able to spend the majority of my time doing things that feed my soul and utilize every single thing that God's given me, that's freedom.
Right. And I love that, because sometimes we feel guilty for loving our work and the parts of the work that we love. But I feel like a lot of times people, or at least what I've gotten good at, is getting the stuff that I don't love about my work off of my plate and then keeping the stuff that I do love. So actually making more time for myself has made it so that I keep doing more of what I love. So technically I'm still working, but I'm working on the parts that I absolutely love, which to me has been really important for freedom. And it just looks different for everybody. But I think if we as women entrepreneurs are going to put ourselves out there in the world and do this crazy thing of owning a business and trying to serve clients and trying to be helpful towards our families, I think it's really, really important for us to find what works to keep it sustainable in the long run so that more women want to be entrepreneurs and our daughters grow up to want to be entrepreneurs and be able to give back to the world and then take from it too. Because I think that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is as much as you're giving, you're getting, as long as you're trying to do it the right way.
And I think it all comes back to what we talked about earlier around understanding your purpose, your mission, your vision, your values, is because you'll always come back to that.
Right.
You'll always come back to, I want to live in whatever. For me, it's I want to live in full alignment,
Yes.
working with cool people, doing cool things, right? And building cool things. And
Right.
and if I just keep coming back to that, the letting things go that aren't serving that mission are easier. The finding new projects that serve that purpose in how I want to spend my life, those come, right? And you're so good at that. You do that so seamlessly and effortlessly, but it requires a mindset that you really
Yes.
work on that I think people don't see as much, right? But you're
That's
such a
right.
master at it.
Thank you. Yeah, it has been a journey for sure. It's hard to let go of the things that you don't want to do because you feel like we all feel like we should be doing these crazy things, and of course, there's going to be some mundane to everything, but the goal should be to try to get to the life that you love and do what you want to do, like have cool conversations with cool people. So I love that. Well, thank you so much for being on with me today and being my first guest. I am honored. I am excited for everything to come. We have worked together for a while now, continuing to work together moving forward. Just as final words, I wanted to ask you if you have anything that you're offering to our listeners today, and where can they find you to learn more about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. So you can find me on SherrySutton.com. It's SherrySutton.com. And you'll see all my offers there. I primarily do one-on-one coaching, but I have some exciting things coming up soon, including a purposeful and profitable business school where you can do a lot of the things I do one-on-one through courses. And I'm super excited to be offering that here soon. So stay tuned, and you can find me on all the places on social media. I'm everywhere. If you just look up Sherry Sutton.
Awesome. And I'll link that too in the show notes so you can easily click on it and be able to find Sherry anywhere you'd like. So thank you so much again, Sherry, and we will talk soon.